everybody, very, very much. Well, by now you know that Donald Trump is sort of running the table with delegates. He needs to get about 53% or so of the remaining delegates to capture the nomination. And now many are seeing him as the inevitable guy. Enter Florida Governor Rick Scott, who, right after the Florida primary, decided to endorse Donald Trump. That is after Donald Trump won the state. The governor joins me now. Was that the reason, Governor, you wanted to wait till after the primary? Because some would argue that looks a little opportunistic.
Well, let's go back to 2010 when I ran. The establishment was all against me. They wanted me to get out of the race. I was not the Republican establishment candidate, so I let the voters make their choices. They did it on Tuesday. But let's think about where we want to go. We have to win in November. We have to win in November. If we want a president that's going to focus on jobs, defending the Second Amendment, having somebody in the Supreme Court that believes in the Constitution, rebuild the military, then we've got to start focusing on winning November. And the only way to do that is get behind Donald Trump.
So why didn't you do that when he was looking just as inevitable right before the primary?
Well, what I wanted to do was let my voters, those in Florida, go through the primary. They could make their choices just like they did back in what I did back in 2010. I relied on the voters. I didn't rely on the public. The Republican establishment wanted me out of the race. So I did the same thing. I waited until after our primary. But now's the time to coalesce so we can get the right president.
All right, but he is not the nominee yet. And you seem to be telling Ted Cruz and John Kasich, hang it up. So what changed outside of his getting a few more delegates in pursuit of that? Because no one has got the nomination yet.
He's going to have almost the magic number or the magic number by the convention. So we need to start thinking about November. There's nobody that's going to be close to him. The voters have spoken. We need to listen to the voters. They said, we want an outsider. We want a business person. And they're very similar to what I went through. They've spoken. We need to listen to them. Don't let party leaders sit here and tell us what voters want.
You're a leader.
They want
You're a leader,
Trump.
Governor. You're one of those party leaders. You're a governor of, one of the most important states in the country.
The best state to live in the country.
I know, but you're establishment.
But we need to think about
you are establishment.
We've got to think about. We need to think about November. We need to think about winning November. We need to think about I need a partner in D.C. that cares about jobs. Barack Obama has not helped me build jobs in this country since I've been governor for 5 years. He's never been a help to me. I need somebody that's going to defend the Second Amendment.
All right, well, let me ask you about that. Paul Ryan doesn't think much of what Donald Trump had said about not being behind riots or the threat of riots at his events. He was asked about this, and Ryan told reporters that nobody should say such things, not the kind of language that Donald Trump uses. To even address or hint of violence is unacceptable. So that doesn't sound like a smitten guy. And then you have similar language that has come out of the likes of Mitch McConnell. So they're big, I guess, for want of a better term, establishment guys who have serious reservations about the tone of Donald Trump's campaign. Do you?
Well, I don't think I'm going to agree with anybody exactly the way they're going to say anything. But what I do know is I want a new president.
That's not what I asked. Do you think, then, the way Donald Trump has talked about the risk of violence, he has never, you're quite right, recommended or endorsed or espoused violence at events, but that he hints of it, and that these guys are saying, you've got to police that kind of language. Do you agree?
In my races, I've had protesters, I've had hecklers. Everybody deals with it differently. Donald deals with it differently than I probably would deal with it.
So you don't agree with the way Donald deals with it?
He deals with it. Everybody deals with it differently, and every event's a little bit different, Neil. They're never the same. But what my point is, the voters have spoken. They are picking him. We need to listen to the voters. And now we need to coalesce so we get a new president.
What if in future states do you think what you've risked here is those who vote in future states? Because Ted Cruz has a mathematical route to get this. It's very tough. You're quite right in the case of Kasich. But you're ruling it out when that was the one thing you had argued before the Florida primary you didn't want to do. But now you are ruling it out for them because he looks inevitable. I could play the math and say, well, he might be. but he's a long way from being there.
He's either going to have a majority or he's going to be pretty close. Think about it. This is election time where the citizens don't trust the politicians. And so
I know
can you
that, but
imagine
what
going
is pretty
to a
close to
convention?
you? Pretty close to you. He's argued that if he has a big enough lead, and he's close enough, he should get the nomination. There are these little rules that say half the available delegates plus one, which is 1,237. If he's at 1,100, is Governor Rick Scott of Florida saying it's his nomination?
He's going to be so. I mean, the odds are he's going to be so far ahead that if the party leaders decide to go a different direction, then they're going to lose the support.
Well, no,
of the
but if he
people that
gets to the first
brought
ballot,
Donald there.
Governor, and he doesn't have 1,237, yes, he might have a lead, but he didn't get it on the first ballot, right? So no one's taking anything
I
from
believe
it.
it'd be a mistake, Neil. I think it'd be a big mistake when you look at the voters that are coming in to vote for Donald Trump. They're active now in the Republican Party. They weren't active before. If he goes to the convention with being very close to having all the delegates he needs and doesn't get it, I think it will be very difficult.
But it's happened before, right?
No,
it's happened before. I'm just saying, I don't know how it will end up. I am saying there is this thing we have to get 1,237 delegates. You seem to be saying that there will be hell to pay if he doesn't get the nomination when he doesn't have the 1,237 delegates. Those are the rules. Everyone understood it's 1,237. You seem to be saying if he doesn't get them on the first ballot, he should still be the nominee?
I think that if he's where we all believe he's going to be, and if we don't coalesce behind him, then we're going to have a very difficult time winning in November.
I'm sorry, sir, that's not what I asked. That's not what I asked. If he doesn't get the 1,237 on the first ballot, he is not the nominee. Technically, he's not. Now, he might get it on a second ballot.
Oh, absolutely,
he might get it on third ballot. Go ahead.
Neil, I agree with you. I would hope that he has the 50%, but if he's close, he needs to be our nominee because we've got to start coalescing this party. And
but close is no cigar.
Governor,
Governor, this is an important distinction. I'm worried because I just wanted to be fair to everybody, as I'm sure you do. There have been many candidates who've entered a convention with delegate leads. Lyndon Johnson had far more delegates committed to him than John F. Kennedy. Even with John F. Kennedy's winning so many primaries, that was a case where party bosses kind of dominated the scene. Now, we all know what happened then. All I'm saying is, are you shifting the rules a bit that if Donald Trump has a big enough lead, but not quite the majority, it should still be given to him? Shouldn't we go through the motions of ballots and see if he gets a 1237, great, he's off to the races? Are you saying that's not the case?
Well, clearly at the convention, the rules will be followed. My belief is if he's close to the 50%, clearly if he's there, it's fine. But if he's close to the 50% and he doesn't get the nomination, we'll have a very difficult time winning in November. That's why I believe we ought to coalesce behind him now.
So why do we have ballots at all? Governor, why do we have ballots at all then? Close is not a done deal. You seem to be advocating if he's close and he doesn't get it, that's not fair. Well, if he's close and he doesn't get it, that's the way the cookie crumbles, right?
It's absolutely what the rules are. The rules should be followed. My belief is if he's that far ahead and he's close, if we don't choose Donald Trump, then we'll have a very difficult time winning in November. The most important thing to me is making sure we have a president that wins, that helps with jobs, the Second Amendment, getting the right justices, to make sure we change the direction of this country. I need a federal partner that's going to help me in Florida.
All right, real quickly, and you've been very patient. That would be like saying your opponent, when he was ahead in the polls by 10 points with only weeks to go to the election, give it to him because he had a big lead. If we had stopped it there, we'd have a very different governor of Florida. We didn't do that. There was a process called Election Day. There's a process at the convention called a first ballot, then if necessary a second ballot, then if necessary a third, and on and on. By that token, Abraham Lincoln in 1860 would have never gotten a chance to be president because another guy had a bigger lead in delegates. Abraham Lincoln had a follow-up lead in future ballots. Abraham Lincoln, governor, you're saying would never happen.
Well, it's totally different to having polls than having votes. We've had a very contested primary with a lot of great candidates, some good friends of mine, a lot of governors that I've worked with. We've had Marco Rubio and Jeb Bush from Florida. We've had a very contested primary.
But that's not what I'm saying. Others have had delegate leads. In 1860, I mentioned that one just as an example for your party, where others had big delegate leads. And this guy, Lincoln, was nowhere in that bunch. And then they all kind of eventually settled on him as a consensus figure. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but what stopped the guy who led from happening is he didn't get to the required delegates. There's a reason why they required half the convention delegates plus one.
My belief is Donald Trump has shown that he's brought so many new people into the party. He's winning. He's way ahead in the delegate count. He's going to be way ahead at the convention. It's going to be a big mistake if we want to win in November.
Right.
I want a nominee that's going to win.
Okay, Governor, thank you very, very much. We'll see what happens. All right, we'll have a lot more after this.